So I'm now joined by Toddington, Jordan and Quentin to discuss the future and what we're all facing. Toddington, can I start with you? I mean, can you tell us about what your business is and how you see it developing in the future?
Yeah, so the overall goals of GRIDSERVE are to deliver sustainable energy on such a scale that we can help move the needle on climate change. Clearly quite a thing to take on,
yeah.
But it's down to us alone, this generation, given the time frames we have available to us. And the way that we're going about it is we're building a new ecosystem that stops burning stuff, topical for this, which we call sun to wheel. So we're generating clean energy from solar projects. We are then using batteries to kind of balance that energy. We are installing new charging infrastructure, so we've just delivered over 100 charging locations in the last 100 days across the UK. And we're putting that energy into electric vehicles. And that kind of, in terms of the electric vehicle side, we're leasing electric vehicles, and every person who leases one from us, we plant 100 trees as well, which reduces the carbon from the last vehicles that were burning stuff. So kind of that's the overall plan that we have, and we're delivering that in the UK, and we're looking to scale it up across the world.
Wow, I mean that's very impressive, and the speed. I mean, I can verify that from experience. Where I go to where there used to be 2 chargers that sometimes worked. There's now 4, 6, 10 that all work and are much easier to use. So it's really made a big difference. And there's a lot more coming, which is fantastic. Jordan, myenergi, really, I think a very close company to fully charge. I met you when you literally just started.
Yeah.
Just give us a brief history of what you're doing and how fast it's changed, because you've grown so quickly. It's extraordinary.
So we look at the industry very similar to GRIDSERVE and Toddington, but more on a residential focus. So we manufacture Ecosmart home devices for EV charging and heating. Basically, our products work with and encourage people to adopt solar energy within the home or switch to a green energy tariff. So we do the same for balance in the home and just moving the energy around a little bit smarter in the home, making sure that we stop burning stuff for the energy consumption. But what we have seen, the industry is just skyrocketing from that time in Orkney where we had a prototype charger in the woods running off a wind turbine. We were shipping 35 units a week at that time. We're now getting close to 3,000 a week, so you can see the scale in such a short space of time of and we manufacture all in the UK as well, which is close to our hearts for keeping the production in the UK and trying to look at that supply chain as well for the whole circular economy. So
no, that is really I'm so thrilled to have been a micro part in the development.
A huge part.
No, I don't think so. No, I think you did slightly more work than I did. And Quentin, you and I have been, I think it's fair to say, knocking around on telly for quite a few years here and there. I think we're roughly the same age. You've been doing it longer. You're much more professional than me.
But we've also been driving electric cars for years and years and years, and that's great, since 2009 in fact, Robert.
But then you're now working with Britishvolt, which is really fascinating.
So I'm a kind of EV evangelist and always have been, and for me, batteries, there will be no energy transition without batteries, and I don't think we quite get that in this country. So Britishvolt have this 93 hectare site up in Northumberland, and are going to be the UK's premier manufacturer and research and development of batteries as well. So the big problem here is, Robert, that if we don't have batteries here in the UK, the entire motor industry will go to where the batteries are, and that will be abroad. And we don't want that. We need to keep the UK motor industry here. We need to supply domestic made, researched batteries. So Britishvolt are really well tied into people like the Warwick Manufacturing Group at university, and the Faraday Institute, and they're researching new electrochemistries for batteries, like lithium iron phosphate and solid state and stuff like that. And it's important to remember that most of the batteries come from Korea, South Korea and China. So they're made in sometimes coal-fired powered factories, put on diesel boats and brought to Europe and put in cars. Now, these aren't green batteries. And the carbon embedded in those batteries is huge. So we worked it out that it's 92 grams per kilometre of carbon in an Asian battery compared to what Britishvolt want to do, which is like 25. And you can do that if you make them here in the UK. So it's about green batteries, but also developing battery chemistries so they are lighter, they are more dense, the range are longer, the recycling is greater, and design batteries that can be used again and again and again, sometimes 4 life cycles into static energy as well. So it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what's fascinating is really, and this is becoming a more common topic, is that in the last, say, 40 years, we've been offshoring our manufacturing. We've been sending it to Asia, to China, to anywhere but here. And I feel the technology we're now looking at, and I mean, Jordan, you're a perfect example of that, that is starting to do manufacturing in this country, employing people to make things, which we have a really long history. This island has a very long history of making stuff. Yeah. And it seems such a shame that it feels like we've lost that in some ways. And
all of us are flying that flag about making the UK this epicenter of green battery technology, EVs, charging, because we've got such a great ecosystem here. And we invented the lithium-ion battery, and we didn't commercialise it, and Sony did. So that's to our eternal shame.
And I mean, that's going on further to that, Jordan. I mean, can you talk about this? The fact that we need to develop a circular economy. This goes beyond anything to do with electric vehicles. It just generally in the way we live. What we have done is dig stuff up, generally burn it, and just ignore it. And now we've really got to sort of change the whole way we think of manufacturing and how we use things.
That's it. I mean, it's going to be a global effort, right? Everybody has got to be on the same mindset to make something truly green, because it's very difficult to have something completely carbon neutral straight away, but there's things that you can do. Yeah, and it was just purely for the passion of keeping it in the UK. You know, it's got to be greener, keeping it more local, and it providing local jobs and less shipping around the world. It was just something that was so important to me and Lee to keep the manufacturing. Not easy, and not something that necessarily investors would want, and industry wants. They want you to get it made as cheap as possible and bring it over, but it's not what we're in it for. You know, we're really passionate about making this transition to electrification of transport and heating green. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? Surely we've got to learn from our mistakes. You know, one point in time we were told diesel was good for us, and we all switched to diesel because we thought we're doing as we're told and there's that trust there. Now it's like, no, we all know how electricity is generated. We know how it can work, and we know how we can intelligently optimize it. Let's do it right the first time, instead of just building this, shipping chargers left, right and centre, building these massive pieces of technology without actually looking at the whole system. So that's just something that we're trying to spearhead, the green revolution. Let's do it sustainably.
I mean, again, for Toddington, I mean, the clean sheet thing applies to all three of you, but I mean, it applies to Gridserve. I mean, you didn't adapt some old company. You started from scratch with that clear idea in mind. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think we did. It was an idea, and I think the significance of that is it shows that with the right idea and the right persistence, anything is possible. And I think the message to government and everyone, particularly around COP26, is that it is possible. I believe humans are incredibly we're intelligent, we're very resourceful, we get stuff done, and ultimately it's about having a plan and following through on that plan. And I believe it's entirely possible with the ingenuity of mankind that we can fix climate change. I believe it's completely possible. We just need to make the choice to do it, to deliver. And that's why we talk about #deliver a lot. And so we started a few years ago with an idea, some great people, a lot of persistence, never giving up. No doesn't mean no, it just means you haven't got to yes yet. You have to have that kind of mentality.
You do.
And just by kind of persevering through, we've now grown to become one of the leading companies in this sustainable energy businesses, with batteries at the core of what we do, to really make a difference. So I think think of today as a clean sheet of paper. All of the solutions that are needed, at least a vast majority, but probably all of them that are needed to really fix climate change within the timeframes required, already exist. And this situation we're in is such a fragile one because there isn't much time. This is on our watch. This is on our watch, everybody, now available today. It's not, I've got young kids, it's not on their watch. And the solutions, are within our reach. All people need to do is just deliver and get on with it. And so, I think the overall objective of I guess the overall point of that is that, we can, think of today as a blank sheet of paper, and let everyone today chart a path to say, you know what, we're actually going to fix climate change. We're actually going to do it, and we're going to do it now, and we're going to deliver. And if we do that, and if politicians come together, then industry, people, I mean, who in the world doesn't want to protect the only thing that keeps us alive?
Yes,
I mean,
it's kind of fairly basic.
Let's kind of face it. And if we all kind of get that mentality, you know what, we're actually going to do this, then we will succeed, and that's what we're going to do.
I've just got to say that I think the most critical thing is the amount of times I've seen computer renderings of the next generation of car, or computer renderings of an electric something, and the only time I've seen a computer rendering of a location of a charging station, and you go, well, that would be lovely if they ever build that, and then you go there and you go, it's exactly the same. That is, you are a truly remarkable achievement.
Well, it is essential. We did have a few people say, GRIDSERVE, who are you? They don't say that anymore.
No.
Are you really going to build that?
Yeah.
And we have,
no,
but it really is just the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
I actually cried. Do you remember?
Did
I, so dramatic, but because I thought the same. Oh, there's a fancy render of something that will never get built, and like nice idea and everything. Then got there, and I was like, oh my God, there's people that want it as well, like on a grand scale. Because as a little manufacturer, we couldn't build something like that, but we know that that's what's needed, and batteries are needed for us to have this whole, and it's industry working together, and then like politicians, policymakers, regulators not holding back on innovation, like listen to us.
It's really funny that you say that, because I heard it from a number of people. They didn't think or believe we were actually going to deliver it, but whereas we 100% knew we would,
Right.
And the only reason that we did it is because we believed it, and that's what's essential. If you
So true.
if you want to achieve something and you believe it enough, then you will get it done, and that's what we need to do.
Quentin.
But the politicians, we need to help them help us make the right choices. So up in Northumberland, we've got 93 hectares, we're digging the ground up. But you would say, okay, well, why are you putting it up there? Why don't you put it in the middle of the country for logistic reasons? And the reason why Britishvolt put it there is that there's the North Sea interconnector coming from Norway, so completely renewable electricity coming into that national grid area. You've got the wind farms over there. So it's possible to have an entire battery factor, 93 hectares, in renewable energy, powered completely. So the low carbon battery is a reality.
Right.
And then if you make all the recycled materials within the factory and the battery's recyclable, then the embedded carbon comes down and down and down to almost a negligible level. And politicians need to understand that. So my message to the people at COP is know about this stuff, understand it, because it's all new and it's all new technology. And some of them need to drive electric cars and charge them, as we have done all those duty cycles, thousands and thousands of miles. Then you'll understand how wonderful this transition is going to be.
Yeah. Quentin, I mean, what technologies, you've obviously stated batteries absolutely critical, but what technologies do you think we should be focusing on to move the needle as much as we can?
Well, we've got to look at lithium phosphate batteries, solid state batteries, and understand that once we get these technologies right, and most batteries are proprietary, they're not developed. We haven't developed the electrochemistries yet. We're just at the beginning of this exponential learning curve, how we can make batteries lighter, cleaner, last longer, charge quicker, run cooler. But also that the government needs to understand that the opportunities here, this is the biggest commercial opportunity for this country since oil, coal, the railways, the Industrial Revolution, all that sort of stuff. And if you think batteries for EVs will enable us to have batteries for aviation, for maritime, and for static energy storage, for towns and cities, and it will change the world. Batteries will change the world, and I don't think they get that. And they've got to grab this, and there's a tearing urgency to it. We're flat out, you're flat out, because we know how important this is to society, to people, to our children, to the air we breathe, to the industries we have and the lives we have. So, I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but everybody in Britishvolt is just kind of like, wow, that we are in this place in history and we can make a difference.
That's good. Jordan, I can't even follow that. It's fantastic.
But there's technology within the homes as well. There's millions and millions of homes. Like the little energy consumption microgrids essentially, and it's how the whole system works together and balances and supports the network. Everybody says the grid will melt if you plug in EVs. Technology already exists. You know, it's what we do. It's balance the home. It's balance the grid. You know, I think government and COP people need to understand and listen to innovators within the industry.
Toddington, what do you? I mean, is there?
I guess my kind of 2 cents on a fairly kind of macro level on that is, I just think we need to focus on solutions, whatever they are, that are as affordable as possible, ideally less expensive than polluting alternatives, like electric vehicles. You know, the life cycle cost of electric vehicles is less than petrol and diesel now, as is renewable energy, and ones that can just be deployed now. Like there's lots of distraction technologies out there that people get very excited about. But, you know, I just say, look, you know, is this something which is commercially viable? Not in like 20, 30, 40 years, but like within the timeframes required to address climate change. Is it? And is it something that people are actually going to do because it can be deployed quick enough, it works, and it's economically viable, ideally socially, environmentally as well? And if it is, let's focus on that stuff. You know, and let's give that probably more than 80% of the focus. And I just do get a bit concerned that there's other technology in the periphery that sound great and people get quite excited about, but are a bit of a distraction to the biggest problem that we've got, which is addressing climate change.
Because I mean, that was going to be my next question: is what, you know, are there technologies that you think that are emerging now that you think aren't appropriate or aren't going to really help things?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different examples, but I would suggest, you know, rather than necessarily singling each of them out, let's just look at them through the lens of, you know, are they available today? Like now, are they available on a commercial scale within the timeframes to address climate change? And are they commercially viable? Will people buy them? Can businesses use them? And if they are, and they will, those technologies, obviously the biggest piece to that as well, these technologies that address climate change, they've got a really significant carbon benefit and, you know, environmental benefit as well. And if it matches those criteria, let's do it. And if it doesn't, let's not give up on it, because, you know, at some point in the future we don't want to you know, give up on it, but let's not focus on it, because you know, what's important is what we can do, what we can deliver. You know, we say a lot, #deliver today. And in our opinion, that's renewable energy, that's batteries, that's electric vehicles, and it's kind of all of that together, as well as obviously awesome things in your homes. And
well,
you know,
I can give you an example of that, because, you know, even just a few years ago we was installing, not us, but, you know, the government wanted loads of chargers out there, and they weren't smart chargers, they were just chargers that are putting full power to the car, not taking into consideration the grid, not taking into consideration the home, not working with renewable energy. And that's where we stepped in and gone, this is just not sustainable. We need to make sustainable, and I think we need to make long-term choices as well, like make sure that what we're putting in now is going to like last us long-term as well, makes an immediate impact, but then it's not just going to have to be replaced every 5 minutes, and that it's upgradable, and that it is, you know, saving us on the carbon. Like asking all those questions at the beginning when we're buying things, we need to be conscious as masses about what we're buying. It's that I'm going to murder this Greek proverb, but it's like basically like those who plant trees to sit in shade, like to never sit in the shade. I've murdered it.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like we've got to plant the trees now in whose shade we will never sit. You know,
but we've also got
children.
to be aware, Jordan, that this technology changes much, much faster than we realise. I mean, the stuff we're finding out with batteries is that you can make a huge difference by fiddling with the electrolyte, fiddling with the anodes and the cathodes, and we're just at the beginning of that journey. So the Britishvolt factory, we're going to build half of it by 2023, and then as the technology changes, build another half as we know whether we're getting close to solid state and all that. And there's a kind of future-proofing argument, absolutely, but not to close any doors.
Of course not.
And we need to understand what technology is, as you quite rightly say, Toddington, viable, immediate, and how can we really extrapolate that?
And I do think, I mean, that the longer we've been using this quite, you know, initially quite naff term, stop burning stuff, you know, because it's ridiculous and we know we can't possibly stop burning everything. But it is quite a good guide, because you think, well, wait a minute, can you do that? Does that need to be, do you need to burn stuff to do what you're going to do? And if you don't, you think, well, that's probably a fairly good guide, that it's going to be cheaper in the long run, it's going to be better in the long run, it's going to be lower carbon in the, you know, that as a sort of guiding principle has kind of held solid for the last 10 years of me.
I don't think people are very conscious about how much stuff we burn.
Yeah.
You know, if you said to somebody, how much stuff did you burn today?
Yeah.
Most people say, I didn't burn anything.
Yeah.
Did you go for a ride in your car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
burn
boil a
anything,
kettle on a gas
but actually you
cooker?
did. You know, in the middle of your car is something that just burnt,
It's burning, yeah, you're not aware of
300 million year old dinosaur kind of juice.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're just not really aware of that.
Yeah.
And obviously not doing that is helpful. And the
Yeah.
reason we like solar energy so much is that the energy, you know, that people are burning today is actually stored sunlight from hundreds of millions of years ago.
Yes.
That's all it was. You know, plants absorb through photosynthesis sun energy. You know, some of that stayed as plants, some of it got eaten by animals. It all got compressed. Eventually, you end up with fossil fuels.
Yeah.
But we know now that that there's, you know, consequences of extracting all of that and burning it. Whereas if you can just absorb that energy directly, that turns up every day. You know, you can look up rather than looking down.
Yeah.
Is another kind of way of looking at it. Just look up. You know, it's another thought. There's a solution out here somewhere.
Yeah.
You know? Where is it? You know, I'm sure there's a solution. Then you know, then we have everything we need.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's now less expensive to use free sun energy
Yes.
because there is already a fission reactor in the sky. You know, that
That's
we don't
burning.
have to. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that is burning.
It is burning.
True.
It's a long way away.
There's a flaw in the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan, we've got to round up now, but can you state fairly quickly what you would like to see come out of COP26? I mean, what you would like them to say?
Yeah, just a little bit more urgency.
Yeah.
I'm going to go like with the Greta Thunberg effect because, you know, enough empty words. Like, let's actually take some action now, because I feel like everyone can say the right things and, you know, for the cameras or whatever. Like, no, it's done with all the fluffy stuff. Like, let's actually see some solid action because we are running out of time.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. That is important.
Yeah. I think, Toddington, I mean, I presume you're much in alignment with that.
Yeah.
Get on with
I
it.
mean,
Basically.
absolutely.
Hashtag get on with it.
Remove
Yeah, and
barriers.
I've been attending a lot of these. You know, the first COP I went to was COP, you know, was it COP 14 in 2008 before Copenhagen. It was Poznan and then Copenhagen, and you know, there's a lot of like people making promises and a lot of words and a lot of this and a lot of that, and action is absolutely essential. But for me, what I just want to come out of it is people go, you know what, we're actually going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, a bit like when, you know, the Conservative, you know, government like Theresa May, they changed the legislation from we're going to reduce emissions by X% by this, excluding shipping, excluding that,
Yeah.
by this arbitrary date and time. And it was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, to suddenly net zero by this date, and by the way, we're going to try and do it a lot earlier.
Yeah.
You know, and if something can come out of government, you know, come out of COP, with just the world coming together and going, you know what, we're not going to play around the edges.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. You know, then there's companies like GRIDSERVE, like myenergi, like, you know, Britishvolt and others that are just going to rise to the occasion. So it would just be great to get clarity. I mean, all we really need is clarity and certainty, and on that basis, we'll make it happen.
But anyway, thank you. I just want to thank Quentin, Jordan and Toddington for taking time to come and talk to us today. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.